So, all right, tell me a little bit about Sam Bushman and what you're going to be talking about at Freedom Fest and all of that.
Okay, so my name is Sam Bushman. I'm a nationally syndicated talk show host. I do a radio program called Liberty Roundtable Live. I've been on the air. It's our 25th year anniversary this year of the show.
Wow.
I started out by the School of Hard Knocks. I went and bought a radio station, learned how to run it, ran it for 10 years, sold it, and I've been in syndicated radio ever since. While I own the station, I syndicated my show as well. I own an IT company, small business tech guys for a living. I do radio and own some radio networks, and my show is 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. And in addition to that, I'm the operations manager for the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. So I'm a national public speaker, I'm a talk show host, an IT professional, and the operations manager for the CSPOA.
And from what Felicia shared with me, your bio, I mean, you have a large family too.
Yeah, I've got 8 kids, 4 boys, 4 girls. 4 of them are married, 5 of them are out of the house. I've got 3 young ones at home still, basically 17 to 12.
So talk to me about what gets you to Freedom Fest, and is this the first time you've been to Freedom Fest?
So this is the first time I've been to Freedom Fest. I've been to a gazillion other events, Red Pill Expo and a lot of other places live with my radio show over the years. I was at the Republican National Convention live. Inside, right across from CNN, was my booth where we syndicated talk shows. I was there live. I was at the Republican National Convention and then also at the Trump inauguration. So I broadcasted from a lot of different events in my day over the years, but it is the first Freedom Fest that I've ever been to.
So this will be an interesting thing because Freedom Fest, though there will be conservatives, it's a bunch of libertarians and people from a lot of different stripes. So this will be should be a lot of fun for you.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be there live myself. Several hosts from my radio network will be there live. So we'll have a lot of different radio shows there. We've got a media booth. We've also got several breakout sessions we're responsible for example, with Richard Mack and the Constitutional Sheriffs group. There's one presentation Richard Mack will be giving. If you don't remember who Richard Mack is, he's the gentleman that beat Bill Clinton at the Supreme Court. Bill Clinton wanted to push the Brady Bill and force gun control down our throats. And one county sheriff, Richard Mack, said, "No, you're not." Bill Clinton said, "Shut up, Sheriff, I'll arrest you." And Richard Mack said, "We'll see." They went to the Supreme Court and Sheriff Mack won, the only person to ever beat Bill Clinton over a non-sexual matter.
That is quite an achievement in and of itself. And that's great. And so what are the things that are at the top of Sam's mind? So what are the things that you think people should be thinking about before they get to Freedom Fest and while they're at Freedom Fest that you think are right now we should be thinking about?
Freedom Fest has so many presentations. There's literally several hundred presentations. Some are general panel and some are breakout sessions. There's plenty of booths, plenty of broadcasts, plenty of events to attend. In my mind, what I would do if I were going to Freedom Fest as just a member of the public is I would look through all the different presentations and decide kind of what you feel like you're needing. Let me give you an example. If you're in your state and tax issues are your hot button, you know what? I would go through and look for the presentations on taxes. If you, on the other hand, feel like, hey, I want to get into talk radio, or I want to, I'm thinking about doing a radio show or a video, podcast or something like that, meet with some of the talk show hosts and some of the podcasters and some of the people that run radio networks. Really, in my mind, with the freedom movement, what people need to learn to do is get on their knees and ask God where they fit, and then get up and go to work and find out, where are your talents? Are you a writer? Are you a talker? Are you somebody who may not be either, but you have a business so you could fund some of the efforts that a lot of us are making? Where do you fit in? And then I would start with your passions. And then I would look through the hundreds of seminars and hundreds of speakers and events at Freedom Fest and decide where you belong. So, for example, I will be on the general panel, Is the Justice System Permanently Broken? That'll be Saturday afternoon. Myself and Richard Mack and others will be on that panel. And if you believe, hey, you want to help with the justice system, help with, the problem with the police in America, there are bad apples. I get it. We need to get rid of them. But for the most part, I'm not for defunding the police. I think that the police have a valuable role in our society. The whole purpose for the proper role of government started out with a sheriff saying, hey, from a libertarian point of view, I can't sit on my porch with my gun on my lap all day long. I need someone to kind of help me with security and safety and stability. That was how government was born. So we talk about the county sheriff, America's last hope. We talk about working together with police officers. And so that general panel about, is the justice system permanently broken? I'll be answering that. And in summation, the answer is resounding yes, it's permanently broken. Unless, and that unless is really the focus that I will be bringing to that panel.
So you're going to actually have a message that shows that this isn't just about griping and complaining, but there is actually a path forward to go and resurrect this and go to a better place.
Absolutely. It's permanently broken if we stick with the status quo. If you keep doing what you've always been doing, you're going to get the same results. That's the definition of insanity, right? But I submit to you that it's permanently broken as it currently stands. Absolutely, unequivocally, yes. However, I do believe we can do some fundamental, simple things. We, the people, can do them that can change the game.
Well, excellent. And of course, Sam, I just want to make sure that everybody who is sitting there who's wondering about coming to Freedom Fest, by the way, it's July 21st to the 24th. It is in Rapid City, South Dakota. First time it's ever been in South Dakota. And every single one of you should understand when you get there, Sam just did a very eloquent job of explaining the enormity of the amount of information available to you. So what I want you to do is remember one thing. You can go to the booth and say, I want to buy a USB drive, and they're going to ship it to you after, of course, because everything gets recorded, and you can get a USB drive for the entire event. So if you find out that you have a conflict, because of course, obviously you're going to be at all the sessions that Sam's going to be at, but if you can't go to somebody else because they're on at the same time, and they, obviously Sam's going to eclipse them, then you can go buy the USB key and you can listen to the entire event later on. I have done this every year since 2013. My brother and I go every year. We couldn't go last year because obviously of COVID, but you should definitely consider doing that. I'm going to put that out to the universe because I think that that's really important. And then that way you don't miss any of the speakers and you can go have a little bit less stress in it. So what's another topic, Sam, that you think that people should be top of mind, that they definitely should make the trek to South Dakota?
So we're going to have a dinner Friday night. It's a paid event. It's a dinner, though, in addition to your normal ticket to Freedom Fest. And it's, if you go to cspoa.org, which stands for the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, cspoa.org, then you can sign up for that dinner. If you go to lovingliberty.net, another group that I work with, that's my nationally syndicated network, lovingliberty.net. Either of those two sites will take you to where you can sign up for that dinner. The reason that I bring that up isn't that I want you to pay for dinner. Okay. The reason that I bring that up is because we have a panel that'll be Friday afternoon. It's a breakout session where there'll be a moderator, a former sheriff who's now a county commissioner, and he will be moderating 4 sitting sheriffs right now about issues like gun control, like the issues on the border, like vaccine lockdowns and shutting down your business, like forcing people to wear masks, like forcing people to get vaccinated, et cetera, and how these county sheriffs expect to handle these situations. There's 4 literal sitting sheriffs that will be responding to this from a constitutional sheriff's point of view. That panel is a breakout panel on Friday. Look for it. So after the Richard Mack panel that I told you, it's the greatest 10th Amendment rights decision ever rendered, where he beat Bill Clinton at the Supreme Court, is that panel about these sheriffs. Anyway, the point is, at this dinner, not only will you hear from the sheriffs, you'll hear me and Richard Mack and others speak, and you'll get to shake hands and meet and greet with some of these people at the dinner. So that's critical, because then you can learn from county sheriffs that are constitutional and then take back that to your county and say, hey, how can I make a difference? How can I support my county sheriff? And how can we work together to make sure that there's liberty in our county? And so I think that's a critical way that you can not only meet great people that are making a big difference, but we're talking about elected officials, and then we're talking about ways that you can take that knowledge and that collaboration back to your area and make a difference in your community.
Well, and I think you've touched upon a very interesting point, Sam, and that is that people get a feeling that they aren't going to be able to make a difference. And what you're talking about is networking, getting more involved, and then having a difference at the local level, which is really where everything starts, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I bring that up. We've got a couple of constitutional counties in Nevada. They're declared constitutional counties. They're leading the nation in this right now. They're backed by their citizens. Their county commissioners are on board, the sheriff's on board. In one county, Elko County, Nevada, even the district attorney is on board. So we're making a difference one county at a time. And it's really the people and their sheriff working together to make this difference. County commissioners involved at the local level, all three branches of government I've just mentioned are represented here. This is a critical difference as we work on collaboration and coordination on the local level. That's where, in my opinion, things get fixed. That's where things change. That's where we can have an impact and make a difference as individuals.
Well, obviously, you're a man who believes in the future, having a very large family. So, talk a little bit about school choice, homeschooling, and kind of where you stand on some of that.
All right, so I've got 8 children, just so everybody knows, 4 boys, 4 girls. I've been married for 30 years to the same woman. All my children are from the same girl, so that's wonderful. I'd marry her again in a second, by the way. But I bring this up because we have never put our kids in government school, and we never will. And we homeschooled them for years. As they got older, we put them into a private school that publicly promotes that it doesn't take a penny of government money. So when you think about that in government school, it takes an average of about $10,000 per kid per year. Now, I know people will say it's more, and they're right, but I'm going to use that conservative number. So if I've got a kid that goes from kindergarten through high school, that's 13 years in the government school. I've got 8 children, and I've put not a one of them in the government school. So that's, let's see, $130,000. So kindergarten through 12th grade, 13 years times 10,000, $130,000 per child. My wife and I have single-handedly saved we the people, the taxpayers, well over $1 million. And best of all, my children are not indoctrinated by the system. You know, critical race theory is being taught right now. And this is really helping Americans kind of understand how abusive the indoctrination really is. I reject critical race theory 1,000%. I don't believe in it. Critical race theory, for the summary, is that, you know what, if you're white, you're a racist. It's so systemic you may not even know, but that just proves that you're a racist. There's no way you can overcome it. There's no way you can do anything about it. It's just the way it is. If you're not white, you're a victim. And as you're a victim, you can never be a racist. Well, I tell stories in my speeches. I give presentations called "The New Media Takes Center Stage." He who owns the media makes the rules. Presentations like that. And in my speech, I don't know if you know, I'm a totally blind person. So in my speech, I slaughter critical race theory and expose it for the fraud that it is. And so I reject government school. I think there are plenty of opportunities and options in the private school homeschooling session. And rather than parents just raging at their schools for the perverted sex education and the race theory lies and the vaccine and mask forcing that they're doing, Americans, take control of your child's education and do it now. And so that would be my experience and my recommendation.
Well, and again, you have accomplished a lot in your life. Obviously, you've done a lot of things. I mean, some would question. I mean, myself as a business consultant would say, somebody who goes out and says, "I want to be on the radio, so I'm going to buy a radio station." I mean, that is a radical idea, by the way. And if you're out there,
yes, it is.
If you're out
so,
there,
by the way, my wife and I built a home. And to get into radio, we sold that home and put the money into a radio station.
Wow. Okay. So now you're talking about somebody who's really willing to put his money where his mouth is. And of course, as you've heard, Sam, he is not shy about what he's talking about and how he speaks. So obviously you're willing to do that. That was a huge step. And I would, by the way, I'd recommend to anybody who wants to get into a business, you have to understand that lots of times you'll be out there, you'll say, well, I've tried to get into something. I tried to move something along, but I couldn't get in the door. They wouldn't let me in the door, whoever they are. Well, then you have to go create your own. And that's what Sam did. And I'm just saying, Sam, that's a wonderful example of leadership in that regard. So let me give you a
30-second background on that story that might even be more helpful. As a blind kid, I couldn't play baseball. So I'd sit there and listen to Wolfman Jack on the radio with a transistor radio held up to my ear while everybody else played baseball. And I thought, you know what, I could do that. And so my mom checked into broadcasting school when I was like about 5 or 6 years old. And they basically told her, forget it, kid, it's like being a rock star. You'll never make it. Well, I then started to make my living in real estate and as an IT guy. And then I got drafted into a political campaign back in the early 90s, like 91 range. And when that happened, I was listening to some talk radio at night and I heard these talk show hosts. There was a guy by the name of Jerry Hughes. He did a radio program called Washington on Trial. And I loved it. And I thought, you know what? These guys are crazy. They're either telling lies and they should be stopped, or they're telling the truth and they should be promoted. And I researched, found out they were telling the truth. So I went to the radio station owner and I said, hey, you know what? I hear this radio stuff way late at night. Why don't you put it on in the day? And he said, no, we just turn on the satellite at night. Turn on the satellite, go home. Don't worry about it. I said, will you put it on in the day? He said, no. I said, come on, we really, no. Well, what if I pay you? All right. So we put it on for pay, and that's how I got my start in radio. And then eventually I realized that he who owns the media makes the rules. And so then I just simply took a buddy of mine and we went and bought a radio station. I sold a house, spent 120 grand on a radio station. And because I was an IT guy, I wasn't too shy and I learned how to run it, man. I was chief bottle washer, took the hard knocks, ran it for 10 years, sold it to like-minded friends. And then I continued my nationally syndicated radio talk show. So I was streaming on the internet in 96.
Wow.
Everybody else didn't even know what it was. And so I've been around for a long time and I've taken my lumps in the media and I know what it's about. And we need to take back the narrative from the mainstream press. And obviously that's what you're doing. And I commend you for it.
Oh, yesterday I actually was speaking to a documentary filmmaker, and we were talking about how to deal with some of the issues today, with censorship and that. And I said, one of the saddest things, again, I did not take the same path you did, but I've been in business for a number of years, serial entrepreneur. And I started telling people, many years ago, decades ago, saying, look, you have to build your own resources. You have to own those resources. And when I saw Donald Trump ascend because of Twitter, because of Facebook, because of those things, I go, that is a precarious place to be, for one simple reason, because they can turn off the tap on your air supply and take you down. And when I tried to convince somebody that they needed to build their own infrastructure, they're like, well, I mean, how do you really do that? And Sam, you understand that as an IT guy.
So here's what's interesting about that. Here's what's interesting about that is I built my own radio network called Liberty News Radio, and I built and ran radio networks for other people for a number of years as well. And everybody told me, Sam, get on YouTube, Sam, get on Facebook, get on Twitter. And I dabble in that stuff, but I never really took the bait because I realized that the engine they deploy to fund your resources that way could be taken away from you in an instant. And so everybody else who depended on that revenue, as soon as the big boys, the tech guys started to rein in that and shut their revenue source down, that's what they did at first. It never affected me because you know what? I build what I build and I run what I run and I own what I own. I don't depend on their infrastructure for revenue. And you're right, I could be a 10 times bigger talk show host if I'd take that bait, but I'd also be hooked on that revenue and be able to be shut down. And I look at a lot of people, Dennis Prager, many others, really struggling, WND.com, because they were dependent on that money. And now what do? Well, for me, all I'm doing is getting bigger, but it's my own resources that are funding it. Like-minded Americans are supporting the effort as well, but it's primarily on my shoulders. But as a result, I'm not getting shut down. I'm only growing.
So how do people go and listen to you? Because you're on 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. Obviously, you're taking a day off in there, which is only appropriate. And how do we get you? Where do we go?
So libertyroundtable.com is my website. You can also go to libertynewsradio.com, which is my network. And then I'm also syndicated by another network called lovingliberty.net. And if you go to any of those three places, libertyroundtable.com, libertynewsradio.com, or lovingliberty.net, you can get live and on-demand radio at your fingertips around the clock. If you go to lovingliberty.net, there's an iPhone app and an Android app you can download with archives and on-demand and live radio, as well as you can follow our Twitter feed and a lot more. But we don't depend on their revenue generating capabilities to fund what we do. And so we're just not as vulnerable as most. Now, sure, if they shut down the entire internet, then all of us are in trouble to some degree, at least from a nationally syndicated point of view. But the infrastructure that we built doesn't depend on their financial wherewithal to make happen.
Well, excellent. All right. Well, Sam, I really appreciate you coming on and spending some time. And I just want to remind everybody that you should definitely be coming to Rapid City, South Dakota. In fact, I'm going to give you directions right now on how to get there. Now, I'm going to say this, and and I realize that Sam is not going to be driving himself, but I'm going to give everybody directions on how to get there, so you have no excuse. First off, locate Interstate 90. If you cannot locate Interstate 90 and you were raised in the United States, go find your 4th grade teacher and ask for a refund. Once you find Interstate 90, determine, are you east or west of Rapid City, South Dakota? Should be relatively easy. If you are east of Rapid City, go west until you hit the wide spot in the road in South Dakota, 78,000 residents, that's Rapid City. So I don't leave anybody out. If you are west of Rapid City, head east, and then you get to the wide spot in the road, and you repeat that because Freedom Fest is worth going to. I tell you, I have always loved going to Freedom Fest. You meet people, you meet very interesting people. Look forward to meeting Sam Bushman in person. If you're interested in what he has talked about, if you're interested in what he is all about, you will meet him, be able to talk to him. That's the beauty of Freedom Fest. The accessibility is unparalleled, and you now have no excuse. You now know how to get there. You don't even need to go to Google. You don't need a map. You got to just find Interstate 90 and get there. And I've had people say, well, John, maybe that's too far. Maybe this is this. Excuses never get the job done. And all I can tell you is that you should never have an excuse, because you should go to Freedom Fest. Sam, lead us out with something that you think will just get us all charged up for today.
My radio program is about God, family, and country, and the protection of life, liberty, and property. And if it's constitutional, we love it. And if it's not, we hate it. And one of the things that you gain at Freedom Fest, when you hear some of the, in my opinion, some of the best professionals and best speakers in the business talk about the sacred cause of liberty, you will gain a feeling. And this feeling is what the founding fathers talked about. The American Revolution, they talked about over and over and over. You know what? I don't know why I'm in this. I don't know what's going on. There's a greater source of power, a greater hand that is influencing me and keeping me in this cause. George Washington talked about it all the way through the patriot community at the time. And you will feel that feeling that the founding fathers had, and you will know that we're onto something when we want to preserve the greatest country on the face of the earth. Freedom Fest is that place where you'll get that feeling. Come and meet me and shake my hand, because I'm telling you, when you feel that feeling, you will decide that you need to be part of it in whatever way God leads you to be. That's what you can do. And this is where you get that feeling when you're in person. It's electric, not because of me, not because I'm important. I'm not a rock star. I'm just an average American. Put on my pants one leg at a time, work with the American people the best I can. I'm just the average Joe, like the rest of you. However, that feeling transcends us all. It is the sacred cause of liberty. And at the end of every show, I say, God save the Republic of the United States of America. And that's the hope, that's the feeling that we all need to become part of.
And with that, I just want to thank Sam Bushman for taking some time out of his busy schedule. Obviously, he's a man of many different talents. He's involved in lots of different projects. I would highly recommend that you go to Freedom Fest, you meet with Sam Bushman, and you say, you know what, Sam, I listened to that interview that you did, and you know what, that interview helped me make that decision to come to Freedom Fest. Sam Bushman, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time and look forward to meeting you at Freedom Fest.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure.